Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows. How are you,
Colton
sir?
Brown. Doing good. Finally doing this bonus episode.
Oof. It's been a long time coming. Bonus episode number 19 is here. We're talking the early days of Studio Ghibli, the Japanese animation film studio. And this is an episode that we have promised our listeners for, I believe, about 2 months now. And unfortunately, we have not been able to live up to that promise. Now, I've fallen on the sword a couple times already, but I have no trouble doing it again. I found myself in a precarious position of having a lot less free time than I'm usually accustomed to. For some reason, we won't specify why, and that actually just took a consequence of me not being able to watch these movies as fast as I intended to, but I did. We have 5 movies on tap for this episode, for this bonus episode here, that we're going to get into. These are films that were released in the 1980s, actually, over in Japan. I think they came over to America a little bit later. We'll get into kind of the details on each, as we come to talk about them. But just to tee it up for all of our listeners that haven't, looked at the description or anything like that, 5 movies we're going to talk about: Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, Castle in the Sky, Grave of the Fireflies, My Neighbor Totoro, and Kiki's Delivery Service. Those are the 5 films that we have in store for our listeners on bonus episode 19. What does that mean? What does a bonus episode mean? It's been a while since we've done a bonus episode, to be fair.
Refresh me.
Partially as a consequence, again, of just the delayed nature of this episode, but also just because the last time we did anything was with our Game of Thrones coverage, which was very long-winded. We were very thankful to be done with that. And now we're hopefully switching back to a more regular bonus episode release schedule and style, in the sense that we'll be doing kind of film franchises or something thematically connected. So stay tuned to the end of the episode where we're going to talk about what we have coming up for our next bonus episode as well, which will be a good one. So how this works. It is a bonus episode, which means that it's a timed exclusive for our supporters on Patreon. Our Patreon is a platform where our listeners can donate $2 a month to receive the early access to these bonus episodes, as well as early access to all of the regular episodes we do, and they get a little recognition on our super cool website that Andrew designed. So that's pretty chill as well, I think. So if you are a supporter on Patreon and that's how you're listening to this episode, we greatly thank you for your support. And if you're listening to this episode when it's out on the regular feed, we also thank you for your support, because that's awesome. But if you do want to listen to any future bonus episodes as they get released, just head to our Patreon. It's watchreviewrepeat.com/premium, and then click. Wait, hold on. Is that nope? Go to patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat. That's the direct link, or you can again just go to our website watchreviewrepeat.com. Click the premium tab, and then click the Become a Patron button, and that will get you where you need to be. So without further ado, we're going to get into the Studio Ghibli goodness as it was. So I would like to just start this episode by doing a brief introduction on Studio Ghibli, because I'm not sure if everyone's necessarily familiar with their films. They're like I said, they're a Japanese animation film studio. They're based in Tokyo. They've been around since 1985, technically speaking. So they've been around for 30 plus years, and they've put out a lot of films. Let's see, I'm not sure if we have an exact total for their... it's a lot. It's 20 plus, I think, is kind of the ultimate thing. And it sounded like they were maybe going to be done making films, and now that's apparently not the case, and there's a new film that's going to be coming out within the next couple of years, it sounds like. So
they've produced at least 42 movies, by the way. Just
at least 40. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So we're not talking about 42 movies. Obviously, we had to kind of find a way to divide this into something a little bit more manageable, a little bit more bite-sized, and so we figured release order kind of made the most sense. So they made 5 technically speaking, Studio Ghibli made 4 movies leading up through 1989. However, there's one movie that's considered a Studio Ghibli film in Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, but it was technically made before the founding of the studio. So, what is Studio Ghibli? It's the brainchild of 3 men, 3 very talented men, Hayao Miyazaki, Isao Takahata, and Toshio Suzuki. Now, the first 2 you'll recognize as the directors of the films that we're going to talk about today, and the third one, I believe, was a producer on those films. So that's where it came from, and Ghibli actually refers to the Arabic name for the Sirocco, also known as the Mediterranean wind or the hot Sahara wind. Because the studio's intention was to, quote-unquote, blow new wind through the anime industry.
So, and boy, have they.
Well, yeah, you could definitely say that, because I feel like, in terms of footprints for animated films, you have to talk about their contribution, because I feel like they've been really, really influential, basically since their formation, and all across the world, not just in Japan. In Japan, the name is usually pronounced Ghibli, while in the West, it is more commonly pronounced Ghibli or Ghibli. So I think I've been going with the latter pronunciation on my end, or we can call it Ghibli. Who cares? It's fine. They've been around for 30 plus years, and they were kind of an upstart studio. It wasn't until Kiki's delivery service that they really kind of hit their stride in terms of success, in terms of box office success.
Yeah.
And since then, I feel like they've just been kind of on the top of their game. So
highest grossing film in '89 in Japan was Kiki's Delivery Service.
Exactly. So like I said, that's kind of where they hit their stride. So that's a little bit about what the studio is, what they're kind of about. I want to ask you, before we jump into our first film, what's your experience with Studio Ghibli on a personal level?
I've always heard about them, like the pop culture. There's a couple movies that have a lot of I don't know, like you go into Hot Topic and you'd see this or that. You know what I mean? And you'd see the people and they'd be all into it and everything else. And there's like a cult following behind a couple of these movies, several of them. And, it's always been one of those things that I've always heard about, but I've never really taken a dive on. So I think I took the dive sometime last year, I think.
I feel like it was a while ago, because we've tinkered with the idea of doing this episode even longer than just the period of time when we announced it and then finally are doing it now. I feel like you in particular have been kind of, and I feel like you kind of just had like a scatter shot, like you just picked up a few at a time, watched them.
Yeah, so I started off with, I can't remember the order I've watched all the movies in, my first viewings of them. But, it was a scattershot kind of deal. Like, I know the heavy hitters. There's, Kiki's Delivery Service, I think, was the last heavy hitting movie, like the last, of the big titled movies that I watched. But I think I started off with, I think Princess Mononoke, I think is what I started off with, one of them. Anyways, I picked up like 3 of them at Best Buy, is what I did. And then those 3 were absolutely freaking incredible. And then so slowly but surely I started to amass what I have now, which is, it's not all of them, but it's a pretty sizable chunk of the movies. I think I own most of them. I've been pushed, like they blew me away. On my first viewing, I would say there's probably a 2 or 3 out of 5 chance that I had an emotional response to the majority of the movies I've seen from the studio as a whole, which is ridiculous. It could be that I'm inebriated or whatever when I watch them, but I really don't think so. I think that all the movies, or not all of them, but the ones that I've seen, they just, like I said, those first 3 that I had certainly pulled an emotional response out of me, and then it's a real good. I don't know, these movies are so intricately made, and they're so intricately animated and written. And there's a lot of heart and soul into each one of the movies. All of them. I mean, that's across the board. I mean, they might not connect. There's some of them that didn't really connect with me, that I've seen, but as a whole, they're even when they don't connect, they're still astonishingly made. I mean, they're just very well made movies. And I think that something unique with the Studio Ghibli movies that's different for anime is they can kind of bridge if you're open to watching a cartoon, like just a cartoon in general, I think you'll enjoy these movies. Because I don't think that they don't feel like animes when you watch them. And I say that from somebody that I watch a handful. That's taking it too far. I watch a couple of different anime shows, and they don't. These movies they're in a separate vein. They're completely on their own, and they're just so good. And to really drive that point home, I watched My Neighbor Totoro with Sarah, and she's not a huge movie buff, and B, she's definitely not into anime, but she really enjoyed it. And I mean, that really, like I said, it made me feel good because I don't think I'm wrong when I say that these movies can bridge a gap from somebody. If you enjoy an animated movie, then you'll definitely enjoy these because they're really well made. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my personal journey with the Ghibli movies.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's definitely been I feel like a more long and winding one than mine has personally, because I guess in the same boat where I've been aware of a lot of these movies. I've been kind of aware of their reputation, and it's obviously
AMC Theaters puts like all of them out once a year.
They do like a Ghibli Fest every year, yeah. And every time like that comes up, and as someone that worked at a theater for so long, like it would always be a thing. And I think even like Ponyo came out when I was working at a theater, and I didn't know what the fuck it was.
Yeah,
so it was kind of just like, I knew what they were. They were kind of there in the periphery, but I never really paid much mind to them, and that was a mistake, obviously. But I think the kind of reputation, just from hearing from you and just kind of knowing about it generally, it really, really prompted my interest to say, hey, I need to sit down and I need to watch these fucking things. And granted, it took me a lot longer than I anticipated to do that, and I don't think that that's a reflection on these films at all. It's a reflection, again, on my free time evaporating up in smoke. But yeah, it was a great idea to do this bonus episode. I'll say that right at the top, because these 5 films we're going to talk about are fantastic, and I feel like that's going to be probably indicative of, I would imagine, a good majority of the films that the studio produces, and inevitably we'll get to talking about some of the later films and the production cycle from Ghibli. But yeah, I'm mad at myself that I waited so long to sit down and watch them. But that said, I mean, this is my first experience. What I'm talking about today, I've seen each of these movies exactly once, and I've seen all of them pretty recently. I would say within at least the past month. The latter 3 I've seen probably within the past 2 weeks, so those are even more immediate in my mind. So they haven't had a whole lot of time to necessarily sift around in my brain for me to like really, really process them, or see them multiple times, see them in English and Japanese to see if there's any sort of differences and my takeaways or anything like that. So, what you hear is what you're going to get. It's really just my honest, earnest reactions to these movies as I perceived them the first time through, and there was not a single one that I disliked. I can go ahead and flag that. I don't think that's going to be a surprise, and for the most part, there's a certain tone and feel, I think, to a lot of the Ghibli projects. I think there's one major exception in this bunch here, which we'll get to, obviously. But yeah, I was blown away in terms of really all the kind of the hallmarks that you mentioned. It's the animation, it's the writing of it, the voicing of it, the music of it. Like it's all pristine. The music. It's all perfect.
Wait till you hit those 90s and the 2000s, dude. The music really is incredible. Yeah, the production values on these films is ridiculous. And I mean, you have to look at movies from the time too.
Right.
Look what America was doing for animated films in the 80s.
Transformers. There's probably others. This is the first one that came to mind.
Yeah, I had like fucking Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that's selling us pretty short, you know, but you just look at these and it's ridiculous.
No, it really does feel like a labor of love. Like each of these feels so personal and in different ways, but they feel so authentic. It's just a lot of care, attention, love poured into each and every frame of these films.
And the world building in these movies.
The world building is really, really impressive.
It just takes you away. These movies take you away and put you in just such magical places. Even when things are fucking terrible.
Right. Yeah.
It's still I don't know. It's just the creative juices that these guys have in the studio are just, it just blows you away.
It's awesome. I mean,
you haven't got
really
to
awesome.
this point yet because you've only watched what are we talking about? 5 movies?
I've seen 5. I haven't seen anything past these 5 either.
5 movies, okay, and each one was super articulately crafted, right? But they do it for every single movie. I mean, like I said, 40 movies, and they don't miss a beat. Don't get me wrong; some are not as awesome as others, but for 40, like I said, I can't think of a bad single movie I've ever watched from their studio. Not one. It's incredible.
Eventually, we should hopefully be able to have the chance to see all of them, and maybe we'll see if that statement still stands true. It might. It is a very, very good chance it might. I think, small correction on the figure there, I think I see 20 feature films, and there's some other short films too, to kind of
that was
bolster
a quick
that number. Yeah,
I just Googled how many Studio Ghibli films are there, and come up at least 42, which is a terrible way to...
A side note, I don't know if these are counted into that, but there's something tricky about this. There's actually a Studio Ghibli museum over in Japan.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a theater in there that they have like short films that are exclusive to the museum. Cannot be seen anywhere else.
That they produce more films that are like in-house.
Right.
In-house movies. I mean, it's a production house is what it is. So I mean, they'll produce...
True.
So they put their fingers in a lot of different things, but the things that they claim as their own is a different count, and those things that they claim as their own are pretty ridiculous. So, anyways,
so maybe one day we'll take a trip to the Studio Ghibli Museum. Probably not, though.
Awesome.
I don't think I have that sort of money. Maybe in a few years' time. Maybe.
Hop on Patreons.
We're waiting on you. Come on.
Take a trip to Japan.
Yeah. We're gonna need to increase our listener base by
a bunch.
So many multiples that I don't even know where to begin. All right,
if the Patreons really, really, really take off, maybe we can pay Mr. Miyazaki and a translator, and we can have a little one-on-one discussion with him, have him on as a guest.
For sure. Yeah. Well, theoretically, if we have enough money from our Patreon supporters to fund a trip to Japan, we'll be so prestigious that he'll just want to sit down and talk with us outright, I'm sure.
It's true.
So, all right, let's begin with Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, released all the way before either of us was born in Japan in March. Actually, I guess all of these predate our existence, to be fair. So that's not exactly saying much for this particular one. But March 11th, 1984, written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, based on the manga series by Hayao Miyazaki. I'm going to list, and this is going to be true of all 5 films, I'm going to list some of the Japanese voice actors as well as some of the English voice actors. For all of these, except for, I believe, Grave of the Fireflies, there was a contract between Ghibli and Disney for like English dubs and stuff like that. Wow. So, and from what I've heard, a lot of the English dubs are done really well. And that's something maybe we can talk about.
How'd you watch this?
Well, I guess we'll talk about it now. So I implemented a policy with these where if it was in a setting that was distinctly fantastical, then I would watch it in English because I'd heard the dubs were good, and I heard that you didn't lose a whole lot to not watch it in the original Japanese language with subtitles. Now, if it was in a distinctly Japanese setting, like, say, Grave of the Fireflies, I watched it in Japanese with subtitles because I felt like that would make for a more authentic experience.
I got you.
Like, it would feel kind of weird to watch something that obviously takes place in Japan with just everyone
Right.
speaking in English. So I don't know why I implemented that policy. I feel like I would have enjoyed probably all of these movies just the same, regardless of the language, but I kind of felt like in my weird headcanon that sort of made sense for myself.
All right, fair enough.
What about you? Are you just stick with the original Japanese for these?
My first viewing was all Japanese, so all these movies I have seen. This would be the second viewing of all of these movies. So I watched them in English the second time around.
So you've seen all of them in both languages then?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Well, except Grave of the Fireflies, but yeah,
Couldn't do it a second time.
couldn't do that. No.
Fair enough. All right, yeah. So let's get into Nausicaä cast. Japanese side, we got Sumi Shimamoto, Goro Naya, and Yoji Matsuda. Also, I think I did okay with those names, but I'm inevitably going to fuck up some names later in the episode, so sorry. On the English side, we've got Alison Lohman, Sir Patrick Stewart, and the Beef, Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
Warrior and pacifist Princess Nausicaä desperately struggles to prevent two warring nations from destroying themselves and their dying planet. So, that's a little bit about Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. And now that we're finally getting into these films, I'm going to ask you, tell me about your thoughts on Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind.
Okay, so saw this one a little while ago. I think the spacing in our viewing is a little bit different. Mine's a little bit more spaced, I would say.
Probably my fault. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, first and foremost, I think the title is a mouthful.
It's a bit of a mouthful. Yes, it is.
But it's good. It's real good. Really sets the pacing. I mean, this is the first fucking movie from the studio, which I think says a
Technically,
lot.
this is the one that is not officially a Studio
guess you're
Ghibli
right,
film, but it's basic. I mean, it's written and directed by Miyazaki, who is like one of the guys, and it has all the same touchstones as all Ghibli films, I think, too. So it's I think been unofficially considered part of their basically filmography. But anyway,
Yeah. This one was I thought the setting. This really sets the precedence for world building.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty fucking radical post-apocalyptic fucking movie, man. The utilization of the technology in the story, I thought was really cool, like all the airships and stuff. And the thing that I walk away from in this movie is just the underlining the underlining message of the movie, I guess, or that's what I derived from it was what I think the meaning of the movie is, I should say. And I think this is the case with a lot of the movies from the studio. There's this line between like modernization and just the use of technology and what we do to the planet, and the consequences of our actions, and
the liberal agenda, right?
The liberal agenda. Yeah, I would say. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a liberal pointed studio.
Except it was from 30 years ago, so it's still relevant. You might say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's the thing. You know, you watch this post-apocalyptic sci-fi adventure with a female lead trying to save the day. You know, and it's just really.
It does feel like a movie at a time, like in the sense that, like, I don't know, would America have made this movie 35 years ago?
Especially fucking Japanese. The Japanese 35 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it was a radical movie for its time, and I think that I thought it was really fucking cool. You know, immediately when I bought the movie, the thing that got me is there was this giant fucking creature, this like giant creature with this chick with this badass looking rifle on the front of the art. You know what I mean? On the cover art. And I was like, oh, that movie looks badass. I'll buy that. And that's kind of the premise. I bought the movie. I bought the movie because it looked cool. And so, but yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, immediately we could take a deeper dive, but I mean, it's kind of I really enjoyed the premise of the movie. I enjoyed the art. I think if I remember right, this one's got a lot of pastels and stuff in it, real soft colors and whatnot. And I thought that was, I think it's a striking look. The voice acting was awesome. Fucking Sir Patrick, you can't beat Sir Patrick.
The toxic jungle.
Yeah, right. And that's all I got for this one so far. We can compound ideas. What do you got?
No, it's probably somewhere along the same lines of what you've been talking about. But yeah, this is I think the world building is kind of the first thing that jumped out to me when I was watching. This is my first foray into Studio Ghibli. I didn't really know anything about this one in terms of story or anything like that. I think this one starts with like text kind of about like 1,000 years of past since blah blah blah, and but like you said, this is basically a post-apocalyptic society where you've got the Valley of the Wind, who seem to be kind of isolated from the rest of the world and kind of do their own thing, and then basically eventually you have like this militaristic airship that comes and kind of almost wrecks their way of life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so they're kind of off in their own bubble, and then you've got the toxic jungle where you've got these crazy beasts and stuff like that. And also spoilers for all of these, by the way. I guess I didn't say that earlier. I figured it was implied with all these bonus episodes, but fair warning. There's a lot packed into this movie, and a lot of interesting ideas packed into this movie too. And I think pretty well executed ideas. And I know I think I mentioned that this was based off of a manga series. I don't think it covers the entire span of what the series covered, but the series was written by Miyazaki.
Oh, was it really?
And I think he drew it himself too, the actual manga. So it's like it blows my mind to just think about like the breadth of the ideas that he has, because not only beyond this, like this is like a kind of feels like a very kind of, I don't want to say prototypical fantastical type setting, but it has kind of, I think, more obvious touchstones for fantasy, and then some of the other ones like Totoro is a totally different film from the same mind that still feels completely genuine in the same way that this one does. But this one, I think, has some of the touchstones that you might come to expect with something like this.
Just a fucking storyteller, dude.
Yeah, and it's really impressive. And so that's kind of the thing that stands out for me for this one is kind of the breadth of things that happen and the characters that we meet. And Nausicaä as like a protagonist is like, yeah, like it's a 1984 film. Like it's fucking incredible, actually, is kind of what it is. She's headstrong, she knows what she's doing. And the film never really seems to undercut her in any sort of way. Like it lets her be the protagonist of this film. Obviously, the titular protagonist of it as well. But it really, I feel like for its time, it would have seemed pretty radical. So I think it's really cool.
They communicate with the beasts using the fucking. I just remembered it.
Right. Yeah.
Just calming a massive
there's a lot of just really cool stuff in this. Yeah. Like I this is the one that I've seen. It's the furthest away in time for me, probably as well. It's probably been close to a month since I've seen it. So I wish I had a little bit better recollection of more specific moments. I kind of just have broad strokes in my mind right now. But I just remember really, really digging all the world building of it and just kind of the gradual escalation of the plot. And it really kind of diving into these environmental themes, kind of like you're talking about, with the toxic jungle. And then it turns out that, well, there's a little bit more to the story than we thought. Where
it's not only that too, it's being scared. It's being scared of the unknown. Like there's this whole species of creature that these people want to either want to take advantage of them and use them for their own means, or or they just want to eradicate them, or they're scared to death of them, and at the end of the day, they're just they're these hulking things that can destroy everything, but at the same time, they're contributing to the rebirth of the earth, I guess, right? Of at least the toxic jungle. I mean, at the end of the movie, they got the little bean sprout popping out, in the jungle and stuff. So it's cool, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think as like an introduction to like the world of Ghibli, like this is kind of a cool it's kind of a cool end, because I think some of the other movies that we'll talk about are a little bit more simplistic in terms of kind of what they're trying to achieve, and maybe they're a little bit more approachable. I think this one maybe isn't as approachable, to an outsider, because I think it could feel kind of dense in terms of plotting. But as someone,
there's a lot going on. Yeah.
I think for like you and I think we're kind of predisposed to things of this nature. So I think for me, like, the more that the world built up, and you got this military state, and then you got this giant warrior thing, like the big fucking blob human thing that's like ancient being that they like sort of revive, then it turns into like just nothingness at the end, like it's like prematurely like awoken or something. Like it's like one thing after the other, and like I guess it could feel like increasing like too much for someone that's not us, but for me, I was just like, what is this world? Up. Yeah. And I remember my immediate thought when I finished this movie was just like, I want to read this fucking manga. Like, this is some badass shit. Like, I liked it a lot. I actually looked into it, and it's not too bad to afford the entire thing, but I wouldn't read it, so I didn't buy it. I was just like, I'm broke as it is. I don't think I need that to put on my shelf and never touch again. But no, I really, really found myself compelled by the world, by Nausicaä herself, and I think the supporting cast as well. I liked the Lord Yupa character. Patrick Stewart's character was fine. Shia was fine too. I don't remember too much about his character. But I did enjoy this one overall. I wish I had a little bit more specific things to drill down into, to prompt a little bit more of a discussion. But I feel like my overall takeaway is it's a really good film. I really enjoyed. I mean, pretty much all the aspects of it. Like it always felt engaging. It always felt exciting. It always felt like there was something new, whether it was new characters coming in, or maybe it was new creatures being introduced, or Nausicaä and interacting in the world in some way. This is the one where like they fall into like the quicksand, and then they like get underneath the jungle and stuff too, right? Isn't that this one?
Well, yeah. They I think they fall into the quicksand, and then that's what
drops them down to like this area below.
Yeah, which is fucking incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I just remember like the visuals of it as well, just being it's just stunning to watch. Like,
it's a magical fucking place, man.
Turn the sound off. I think you can enjoy it, but also don't do that because the score is incredible.
The whole fucking area there that they thought that was the bottom was really the canopy of these fucking trees.
Right.
Just fucking what a crazy idea. That's awesome. And I tell you something else too. Sometimes you watch these super sci-fi movies and stuff, and they info dump you. Like there's a whole intro sequence where they feel the need to just dump all sorts of shit on you all at once, and it's executed very poorly. I think that this is rich and it's full of things, and it can feel kind of heavy at certain points, but it
builds up to it. I think
it does it in a very organic way, which it doesn't think its audience is stupid. Just just enjoy this movie, and we'll lead you along. And
yeah, it's like here's 10 minutes of this, absorb that. Here's something new for the next 10 minutes, and it just kind of builds on top, and you get layers and layers in it.
And by the end of the film, you understand it all. It's really good,
and it kind of coalesces in this really, really cool way. Yeah, it's a good film. It's an excellent film. I don't have a whole lot more to say on it, like I said, since it's been a little while, but I can. In the spirit of these bonus episodes, granted it's been a while for anyone listening, but they may recall that we like to do something we call our favorite moment of the film. Now, I was asking before we started recording if you wanted to kind of, just take note of your favorite moment, and I think you were struggling a little bit since it'd been a little while to watch it, so I asked you instead.
Yeah, I struggled. Yeah, go ahead, finish your idea.
Well, I was going to say, I asked you instead what's maybe the most iconic moment, like when you think of Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, what's the first thing that pops in your mind? Which obviously isn't necessarily your favorite thing about the movie, but it's just something that stands out for you. So I kind of approached mine with like the favorite moment. I kind of went back and kind of poured through some of the plot to try to like rack my brain a little bit. But I'll ask you just to start. What's your iconic / favorite moment? However you did it. Like what is it? What's your rationale?
So being the oldest, or not the furthest away in memory, this movie was
right.
I think, I don't know. It's a very broad stroke. But I like it feels like such a cop out, but it's just the broad strokes of the movie, and the idea that prejudice are hugely unfounded. You know what I mean? They're just mostly, and this is talking about like the giant insects or the ohms or whatever they're called. I think they're called ohms.
Mm-hmm. Ohms.
But there's a complete misunderstanding about those creatures. And then on top of that, the importance of those creatures and how everybody just kind of fucked everything up. And those creatures are there to revitalize the earth, and there's kind of like this coming back to almost how Nausicaa's village, I think it was Nausicaa's village anyways, her village was living and everything else. There's kind of like this return back to peacefulness and stuff. And I thought that was it went full circle there, you know? And I thought that was, I enjoyed my note says premise is what it says. Just the premise of the movie, the idea of the movie. It's kind of the execution was outstanding. Don't get me wrong. But when I think about Nausicaa, I think of the story, and I just think of the arc. You know what I mean? And it's wholly realized, and I enjoyed that.
So your favorite moment is the whole fucking movie.
The whole fucking movie. The idea of the movie. Right.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I mean, I'm not gonna. Yeah,
you can have a much more specific one. Hopefully, you do.
Well, I was gonna say that my favorite moment is actually kind of the beginning of the movie, because I think it was kind of symbolic of my whole experience of jumping into finally watching these movies. You know, sitting down and watching them, and just kind of giving myself over to the world. And I think that we've said multiple times now, I think that's one of the strengths of this film is the world building, and I felt like it introduced you in such a good manner. Like, I think there is kind of the opening text, but then it's just kind of Nausicaa in like this cave. She's kind of just talking to herself, and like she's interacting with like this giant ohm that, you know, she's like cutting off like the dome from it and stuff like that. Like just the subtle kind of way that it just lets you live in the world, and like it was like very blue colors, and like it was just cool to like feel immediately transported to the different world. And then for it to build up from there, I think was also kind of one of the most impressive things about this movie. But for me, it was just like instantly feeling like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like this. I like this already. That's kind of what stuck out for me. So that was kind of my personal favorite moment of the film. Was just being introduced to the world. So that's what I had for that. So it was a little bit more specific. Not super specific, but a little bit more, you might say.
Specific enough, right.
Right. So that's Nausicaa,
watercolors,
the Valley of
not
the Wind.
Pastels, they were fucking watercolors. I'm such a fucking idiot.
Yeah, well, I do watercolors. I'm old
You
Greg.
do watercolors?
Mm-hmm.
I guess they weren't watercolors. The manga was watercolors. Anyways, I digress.
You ever drank Bailey's from a shoe? All right, let's move on to our next film, Castle in the Sky, released August 2nd, 1986 in Japan, also written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki. On the Japanese voice acting cast, we have Mayumi Tanaka, Keiko Yokozawa, Kotoi Hatsui, Minori Terada, and on the English side, we have English voice side. American side, we have James Vanderbeek, Anna Paquin, Cloris Leachman, and Mark Hamill. In this, a young boy and a girl with a magic crystal must race against pirates and foreign agents in the search for a legendary floating castle, which is why it's called Castle in the Sky. Do you want to start again on this one, Castle in the Sky?
No, you can start on this one.
Okay. All right. So this is a little bit more recent in my memory, so I feel like I have a little bit more of a leg to stand on with this one. I like this one a lot. I think for me, it actually kind of feels similar to Nausicaa. I think maybe a little bit more simplified in terms of the plot. Like, I feel like there's maybe a few less layers of it, but it is kind of I feel like a somewhat similar thing of there's a simple existence that gets interrupted by this kind of bigger thing happening around them, and they get kind of swept up into this bigger world, and it kind of gradually builds up on itself until you reach Lapida, which is, the castle in the sky, like this kingdom here. It's another thing, world building, I think is a big strength of this one. I think it's a strength of I guess all of the films. Probably gonna probably gonna hammer on that one quite a bit. But because of the nature of a lot of these movies, where they're very fantastical in nature, and that's kind of by design. This one, to me, I really, really liked. The one thing that stood out for me, and I think I might have told you this already. So I think that the voicing was done for the English voice cast in, I believe, 1998. But in my mind, I just assumed James Van Der Beek was 40 years old when he was recording it, playing probably like a 12-year-old kid.
That's
even
not
though
right.
he probably, I think he would have been like 20 or something when he recorded the line. So he was still too old, to be fair. But every time I heard him say something, I just imagined him just putting on like I'm a little kid voice, So it was kind of jarring the whole way through. So I feel like I would like this a little bit more if I watched it in Japanese, because I feel like I would be able to dissociate myself from like recognizing the voices.
Especially when it comes to Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill was also similarly jarring. It's hard to unhear him, and he's a great voice actor too. So it's not like he was bad in the role, but it was just hard to not just hear Mark Hamill. But I in terms of the movie itself, I really liked it. I felt like I think I like some of the other movies that we're going to talk about better overall. But I do like this one a lot. I feel like the story, like I said, I feel like this is kind of one of the maybe this is. I guess this is kind of the only one in the 5 that really has any sort of romantic angle to it, right? That we're talking about? No, that's not true. I guess Kiki has a little bit to it.
Kiki's definitely got like a whole thing.
Kind of, but I feel like this is the only one that has the romance as kind of one of its principal focuses, maybe. Whereas I feel like in Kiki it's a little bit more peripheral. Like it drives the plot in a way, but it's not an overt connection between the two characters. It feels a little bit more one-sided, I would say. Whereas here, it feels like Shita, who's the princess, and Patsu, they kind of bond right away. Shita comes floating down, and he's like, "Oh, there's this, this pretty girl that just comes flying down out of nowhere, and
she's a fucking angel.
I'm just working in the mines or whatever I'm doing, and then everything kind of spins off from there, and basically it's these two characters kind of having their adventures. They're evading the pirates, and then there's the military with Mark Hamill and the general and whatever. So it just feels like it's those two kind of getting into it, and it's their story, and it's their adventures that they both have their own kind of connection to Laputa, her from I guess the royal lineage, and him from his dad seeing the castle in the sky at one point and kind of being taught, telling Patsu about it. So I feel like the connection between those two characters is what drives this film, and I feel like it really works because I feel like there is a genuine connection between those two, and I feel like following those two throughout the set pieces is what makes this film really enjoyable to watch. And I think there's some really, really stunning pieces in this, especially I think when they get to Laputa. When they get to the titular castle in the sky, I feel like that's when this movie to me is just whoa, okay. So that's where I'll start with this one, because I feel like I've been rambling for some time on this. So
cool.
So that's kind of where I am with this. So yeah, feel free to branch off that, go in your own direction, anything you want.
I thought the beginning of this movie was I thought that the pacing of this movie didn't agree with me entirely.
On first viewing or both viewings, you'd say?
I think both viewings. For both viewings, I think I had a difficulty getting into it, and it took them seeing the cyclone in the sky for me to really get into it. Like you say, once they actually breach the clouds and they find.
Well, it's halfway through the movie, though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So it's a little slow on the uptake, you'd say.
Slow on the uptake, I would say.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess once they find the robot and she get kidnapped and they bring her to the castle and they find the robot and they're piecing together the robot, it's laid there and it's all dismembered and stuff, and then she's there and it kind of puts itself back together and it goes crazy. I guess that's probably halfway through, right?
Yeah, that sounds, roughly speaking. I'm not sure.
Roughly,
yeah, I'd say so.
So yeah, halfway through it took about half of the movie for me to really get into it. But there's some stunning imagery, especially with these robots that you see in the beginning or not the beginning, I guess in the middle. But your introduction to the robots they're just these fucking badass flying, highly dangerous fucking machines, right? That's your introduction to the robot. It's shooting these laser beams, the whole castle's blowing up. But then fast forward a little bit, and now you're in Lapita or whatever, and they're just there, and the birds are on them and stuff, and they're just
they're just like tending to the fucking like garden or something, like it's like a really serene kind of moment when you least expect it. Right,
and it's kind of cool. And then, but yeah, I really like the castle. I like the idea of the castle. So I think that this one, with the exception of like the Crystal Cave, but the world feels somewhat normal, but there's always this, looming like legend, right? There's a looming legend. I like that, of the castle in the sky.
It's a good band name.
Looming legend. Yeah, it's good. And I like the fact that maybe that's what made it slow paced. I don't know. But the idea that the fantastical things are legends, but then sometimes they're true. I think that's pretty cool. And they finally find what they're looking for, and it is fantastic and it is crazy, and that's where it really started. Like I said, that's when it started to really pique my interest, is when they actually reached the castle and it's everything that they thought it would be. And that was awesome. Like the voice acting, I thought was a little jarring. It was good, don't get me wrong, but like you said, it's hard to disassociate yourself from the live action.
Princess Sheeta.
Right.
We're going to Lapita.
Or Joker's voice. I just heard the Joker the whole time.
Well, he played the villain, so I suppose it's not like super off the mark, but it was just like, yeah, this guy's obviously evil.
Yeah. But like I said, it was a really good movie. Really enjoyed the fucking robots, dude. I really enjoyed the robots.
Yeah, the robots are really cool.
And I really like the castle too, the design of the castle, how it was like these like shifting cubes and everything else.
Yeah,
like the cords,
yeah, it was really interesting, like visually.
And he dropped Mark Hamill dropped all those people out of the bottom of the fucking castle.
Yeah,
what a fucking dick.
Some dark shit, man. This is a kids movie. What's going on here?
Deposited all those people out of the castle. Is crazy. But yeah, it was genuinely terrifying too. When they're running away from Mark Hamill, I thought that was pretty. Like I said, it's pretty terrifying. The little kid with that massive grenade launcher, just
that's right. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. How old is Sheeta supposed to be? She's like teenager, right?
I would say so. Yeah.
I just like there was a few times where I'm just like, I don't know if this is like a product of its time or what's going on here, but like the Pirates, it was the mom with like all of her sons. And like anytime she was around, the sons were just like, "Oh, I'll help you with anything," and like they were like drooling all over. And I'm like, "How old is she supposed to be?" They all had like beards and stuff like that, so I was just like, I assume they're implied to be a little bit. It's fine, I guess. I don't know. It's a little, it's a little skeevy.
She's probably 7. She was probably 17, 18-ish.
Okay.
Sometimes where the line gets a little blurry, maybe.
I don't know. I just I was like, okay, well,
whatever.
1980s.
It was just meant to.
Different
she was
time,
meant
maybe.
to be attractive, an attractive female.
Yeah.
Age does not play a role.
But it is what it is. No, I really liked it. It's a really it's a good film. It's another good one. I think for again all the same reasons. The animation's top notch. The use of the colors really pop, especially in certain moments. Music by Joe Hisaishi, who's I think he did all of the same. It's the same composer, I believe, that worked on all of Miyazaki's films, particularly, and like it's a staple of any of these films that like it's going to be a really really good score. That's gonna when you hit those emotional beats, it's going to be the music that sets you over the edge and starts eliciting those tears. I feel like so. I don't know if this particular film is one that elicited tears from me.
It did not.
But it was still like it made you felt good.
Nausicaä did.
Yeah.
Nausicaä did.
Yeah.
That one elicited a response, but Castle in the Sky did not.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But it's still really good, though.
It's still really good.
It doesn't elicit tears doesn't mean it's not good. It's really good. What's your favorite / iconic moment from Castle in the Sky?
I have one image in my brain, and it's the robot chilling with the bird.
It's a really good one.
I really like that one. The peaceful, serene nature of the castle before everybody turned it into a fucking weapon, which was pretty awesome. Which I think that's, like I said, it's another through point. You know what I mean? These beautiful, serene things, they're powerful, but they're when they're misused. Yeah, although I think that one was kind of designed to be a weapon. I think that's kind of like the fall of that civilization.
Yeah, but theoretically, I suppose that it's supposed to be in the right hands and not in the wrong hands, and it's, I guess, fine or whatever. Maybe, I don't know.
Whatever. Who are we to say? But yeah. So favorite weapon is that, or not favorite weapon? Jesus Christ. Favorite moment was when it's showing you Lapita and Lapita.
Lapida.
Yeah. Lapida.
Yeah.
And it's going over the whole castle there, and you see the robots with the birds and stuff like that, and kind of paints a contrast to everything that you've seen so far, and I thought that was really cool.
I picked the same moment. Just the moment of Patsu and Sheeta discovering Lapida. Like the wonder sweeps over them in the same way I think that it sweeps over the audience, because you've had this kind of mystery box of the entire movie of, what is the Castle in Sky? Will they ever get there? What's going to happen? And so when you finally get there with them, you feel it because you're part of their journey, but you also feel it just because it's fucking awe-inspiring in its own right. And that moment of what you're talking about with the robot, like that really just kind of seals the deal on it. And so that's why I picked it as well. So sounds like we have some pretty similar tastes on that front.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, let's take this discussion into a very different direction, a much darker direction, a much more depressing direction, with Grave of the Fireflies, released April 16th, 1988, written and directed by Isao Takahata, based on, I believe it's a short story of the same name by Akiyuki Nosaka. On the Japanese side, we have Tsutomu Tatsumi, Ayano Shiraishi, Yoshiko Shinohara, Akemi Yamaguchi. And on the English voice acting side, we have Adam Gibbs, Emily Neves, Shelley Kayleen Black, and Marcy Banner. A young boy and his little sister struggle to survive in Japan during World War II. Struggle to survive is pretty fucking accurate, if you ask me. Woof.
Yeah,
this is a rough film. This is a rough film to watch. I would say, granted, I can't remember every single film I've watched in my life. That would be a difficult task to achieve. This has to be one of the most depressing films I've ever seen in my life. Like, I feel like it's minimally top 5. Maybe it is the most depressing. I don't know. I mean, I've seen like Schindler's List, which is certainly up there. Like there's some heart-wrenching films movies out there. Yeah. And I think that the reason this one really, really is as depressing as it is because it feels real, and it lets you and it's those moments of realness that let you feel joy when the characters feel joy, and then when things go sideways, things go wrong, it hits even more. Like even the way this movie begins, it's like a warning to you, being like, buckle up because you're in for some shit. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how this movie starts. But yeah, I don't think I was still ready even after the beginning. So that's my brief experience with Grave of the Fireflies. What about you? That's your reaction to Grave of the Fireflies?
Yeah. So this one elicited some emotional responses from me.
Oh yeah, I cried during some of the other ones for very different reasons. For the reasons Absolutely. That I cried during this film.
Yeah, this one right here is, man. And I tell you what's even, it's more incredible because the director and what writer?
Yeah,
it's based on another book, I guess.
It's based off of an actual short story, which I believe was autobiographical in nature. So it's somewhat modified, I believe, from the original story, but the roots of this story are grounded in history, obviously, in terms of World War II, but I think it's actually grounded in a real story within the context of World War II.
And the director of the movie, he was alive during World War II, and I mean, it was incredibly fucking
I'm sure
relevant.
it's an intensely personal film to
absolutely. And that just kind of knowing that this movie is kind of stapled in reality. It's a part of our history and everyone's history. And then the people that produced and made the movie, it's part of their history, and they actually lived it, and it just makes it that much more harrowing. And it's incredibly sad, especially coming off of like the highs of the past two movies, where things
which they kind of end with like a crescendo, like things build up, and like and then it's like this peaceful, happy resolution. That's you ain't getting that here.
Not all stories end happily. And it's fucking sad, man. It's real sad. A lot of people die in this movie. Your main characters, they suffer a lot of hardships. And I mean, I think everyone, all parts of this family, fucking pass away, right? I remember that right?
Mom, daughter, son. Yeah.
Mom, daughter, son. I think dad passed away too.
Dad's implied to yeah. Well, I think so. Dad's in the Navy, right? And then I think there's a scene where they talk about how most of the Navy is sunk, and I think that I think I read online that they mentioned the actual vessel that the dad is on, and if they're following history, that was in fact one of the naval vessels, the Japanese naval vessels that did get sunk with all of its
the whole
crew dying. So yeah, all four gone.
Fucking the whole family dies. But I mean, this is very much the story of the two siblings that are trying to grapple with no parents. You got this little boy trying to take care of his little sister, and fucking
he's doing what he can.
World War II. They have no family. They have no. I mean, they have nothing, and he's doing what he can to fucking survive. And it's just the fucking world crushes him down, man. And it's really, I'm kind of getting sad just fucking thinking about it a little bit.
It's a rough film. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Like, there are moments of joy in this film, but they're made even more devastating by the resolution.
And you have to think
film.
about the height of the joys.
Yeah, it's like the small joys in life. It's just like, I found a tin full
of fucking fruit drops.
Like, we're not going to starve today because we have like a little bit more food than we did yesterday or something, so. And even then, like when they're like, so like, like they're playing over at like the bomb shelter, and like they're they're kind of off on their own, which they're fucking kids, you know what I mean? And it's like, even if you take it just as that snapshot of like, well, this is fucking depressing in its own right, but like it's like a nice moment of them like kind of, enjoying each other's company and being away from the aunt who came to resent them because she just thought that they were mooching off of her or whatever, he wasn't contributing to society or whatever, the bullshit was. And still, even I think even within that moment of happiness, like she's got like she's like bites on her or just like scratches on her, like she's just in like horrible physical shape, like the little girl, and it's just like, man. And I think to know that I forget exactly what the original story is, again, what it's actually like historically based off of. Like, I think the author, actually did lose kind of siblings in this manner. I think he might have had more siblings than just a sister, but at least one of his siblings basically ended up dying from malnourishment. And like, I can't even imagine that, like it's hard to wrap your head around being in such a situation where things are so dire that like you go live in a bomb shelter and try to fend for yourself, and like that's your moment of happiness, is being able to go on your own. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's a fucking heartbreaking movie to watch. I don't think either of us have said it. This is a fucking excellent film, though.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
Taking a step back, and I think acknowledging the emotionality, I think that's critical to this film. There's a lot of...
That's what it is.
I think the moments of joy, really, you feel the joy, and then by the end, the heartbreak kind of seeps in. And it's not a film that leaves you in any sort of uplifting manner. And I think like the director has kind of said that it's not an anti-war film, but it sure feels a lot like one, like it
certainly should be, right?
The visceral nature of like basically the fire bombings, in the beginning, where like they're just going about their business in this fucking little town, and Americans are here dropping bombs on you, and everyone's just like, oh shit, better take shelter, and just the immediacy of it, and then within like 20 minutes, like their home's burned down, and then within 25 minutes, oh yeah, and our mom is now basically covered in bandages because she got hit. And she's basically completely burnt to a crisp and holding on to dear life, but not for long. It's like it really is kind of like a one thing after the other, but it feels like an earnest, like honest thing of that's the nature of war, and then from that perspective, I feel like that's when you take the step back and say, hey, this is fucked, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't do this to each other. It's
so. And that is obviously oversimplifying the nature of the conflict of World War II.
It is,
but
I mean that's
Japan's
and
role
that's
in
just
it,
the thing,
and
though.
America's role in it. But
I mean, just the things that people do to each other. You know what I mean? It's real fucking sad. All the casualties and
which is why I think
of it.
This is somewhat stepping aside from this particular film. I think it's why a lot of the other films. Maybe probably the two, why Totoro and Kiki's work as well as they do is because they emphasize other aspects of human nature, the more positive sides, and so it elicits emotions that you're like, oh, I feel good about humans, whereas this one is just like, humanity was a mistake. You know what I mean? Like it really is kind of the polar opposites in terms of kind of the nature of humanity, that it hits
human
on.
Condition.
But the human condition, and the thing is, I think why this film works so well is because it feels true. And
it is true
because it is true, right? And that's kind of the sad thing of it. But I think it's what solidifies this as feeling authentic. I don't really think it feels manipulative in any way. Like to me, it feels like it
feels like a real life journey of these children.
Yeah, you walk into this movie and maybe have some expectation of, oh, this is going to be a sad movie, and some people don't want to watch sad movies. That's totally fine, but like this to me felt like this is a film that I don't know, kind of like it feels like it needs to be watched. You know what I mean? Just to kind of to show you like that side of things, like because I think it's important to see that side of things too. To see that not everything is happy endings, like I feel like it's important to see something like this, to see the consequences of things like this. I don't know. I found it really, really compelling, in terms of how the film was made, in terms of where it went. The animation, I think, was again another thing that stood out. But yeah,
the score
it hit hard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did.
It just hit hard. There was even, especially towards the end, and, for like 20 minutes, I was just like, don't let that little girl die. Don't let that little girl die. And, and she's like trying to eat rocks and shit at the end. I'm just like, fucking hell.
It's really fucking fucked up.
It's fucking rough, dude. It's rough, man. It's hard to talk about too. Like, I think you said you only watched this one once, right?
Yeah.
That's like, it's hard. Like, I can't, I appreciated this film, but like I would have to be in a very special headspace to want to go back and watch this film, like to like actively seek it out. And that's not a criticism of the film in any way. Like I think it's It's an amazing film, but it's an arduous journey to undertake. And I think the first time through, because you maybe don't know exactly how it's going to end, there's maybe a sliver of hope. There's no hope if you watch this a second time. You know how it ends, and even with the beginning, it kind of flags you. You still don't know what's going to happen to some of the other characters. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe things end poorly for the boy, but maybe not for the girl. And then it's just it's just all fucked. It's all fucked. So
that's just it. Like, yeah, you don't go to your Blu-ray collection and say, you know what I want to watch tonight? I want to watch Grave with the Fireflies.
But if you want to depress the shit out of anyone, put it on.
It is a good one. And like you say, it's a film that deserves to be watched. If you know somebody that hasn't seen it, it is a good one to show somebody for sure.
Yeah.
It's an incredible story. And it's a hard story, but it's a good one. It's definitely worth showing and worth spreading the knowledge of this movie for. I mean, it's fucking awesome. It's a real good movie.
Real good one. Favorite / iconic moment. It's hard to have a favorite moment in something like this, I guess, but kind of what stands out for you, maybe.
Yeah. So, the death of the little sister was fucking real rough. Yeah. That was, yeah. Like you talk about the crescendo of the movie. I mean, their harrowing journeys ended with her, like you say, she's hallucinating, she's malnourished, she's been living in a fucking mud cave or whatever and eating nothing but, just eating whatever they can. She's hallucinating, she tries to eat a rock and she scrambles to make her fucking food. She dies right there before he can fucking feed her.
She has like a bite of watermelon, I think, and then like she never woke up again is kind of, I think, like the subtitle or something like that. It's like, oof.
God damn. Yeah. Yeah, that one definitely stuck out for me. I remember that very vividly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that's my favorite moment.
It's definitely not my favorite moment. That's definitely
No, I was responding by saying that was not my favorite moment. If I had to pick I think it's definitely an iconic moment. I would agree with that. I would say if I had to pick a favorite moment in this film, it's probably when Saita and Setsuko, it's kind of when they leave the ant, and it's like this kind of just like moment of independence for them, and it feels she's just becoming worse and worse towards them, and they're just like, all right, well, we're fucking leaving. And they go like, why don't we just live here? Like, it feels like kind of like there's hope and like there's a little bit of something. I mean, like, you know that things are working against them. They're living in glass houses, I guess. Things are going to collapse at any moment. But it feels like that's like the one time that they have hope. And then the Fireflies are in there,
right? Does he not? And I don't want to sound like an asshole, but is he not almost like a product of his poor decisions? Like, the ant was a complete asshole. She was a terrible human being, but at the end of the day, we had shelter, we had food.
Right.
Put up with that shit, or do we? I
mean? I think that's definitely a fair reading on it. As
you isolate yourself, and you get. I mean, by closing yourself off, you've kind of sealed your own fate. You know what I mean?
No, I think that's definitely true. I mean, they either stick it out, or like she keeps scolding him for not like working or whatever. Like, I mean, like he could have gone to work, and she could have looked after this, the sister. Realistically, probably. You know what I mean? But I feel like when you look at it from the perspective of, these kids who lost their mom suddenly, dealing with just everything, to kind of have that moment of rebellion, short-sighted, absolutely.
There's still a moment
consequential, I agree. But like I said, in the moment, it is kind of a triumphant moment for them of, let's do our own thing. Like, hey, we don't need everyone else. Turns out, they probably did. You're right. You know what I mean? But like, just as that kind of moment of sticking it to the man and kind of doing their own thing and having that bonding together to have just them. And like, it felt like a really sweet moment together, like kind of like something that really solidified the brother-sister relationship. I thought that was really well done. But of course, it all goes to shit. And you talked about that. So So I like that as a moment of rebellion, as like a triumphant moment. But yes, I would agree with your take on it that, yeah, they probably should have just sucked it up and dealt with the shitty ant. But it is what it is. That's Grave of the Fireflies. It's a rough one, but a good one. But a good one.
Roger Ebert said it's definitely one of the most powerful war films.
Yeah.
Best and most powerful war films. That's what he says.
I think he's right. I think he's right indeed. All right, we've got two more. We've got My Neighbor Totoro up next.
Totoro.
So the interesting thing about this is this was released in a double bill with Grave of the Fireflies on April 16th, 1988. So yeah, when this debuted in Japan, they put two of them together.
That was a fucking roller coaster.
So that's what I was saying is like Grave of the Fireflies deals with one side of the human condition. My Neighbor Totoro deals with a very different side of the human condition, one that's a little bit more positive. I hope Totoro was the pick-me-up that everyone so desperately needed after Grave of the Fireflies, because if it was the other way around, that's just mean. That's just mean. So April 16th, 1988, written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki. Japanese cast includes Noriko Hidaka, Chika Sakamoto, Shigesato Itoi, Sumi Shimamoto, Hitoshi Takagi, and the English Disney cast is Dakota Fanning, Elle Fanning, Tim Daly, Lea Salonga, and Frank Welker. When two girls move to the country to be near their ailing mother, they have adventures with the wondrous forest spirits who live nearby. All right. This is a pick-me-up for us, too. So yeah. I'm going to kick it over to you. You just watched this one yesterday, is that right?
I watched it yesterday.
All right, so this is very fresh in your mind. What do you think about this one?
This is a very charming little movie. And it's I can't remember if I found the little children slightly less annoying in Japanese, but they do a lot of whining and stuff. A lot of screaming in the beginning.
They do it in Japanese, yeah, for sure.
I was like, oh god, these girls. But then it quickly kind of changes gear there. And it does this one did elicit an emotional response. When they find out that they're not going to go see their mom because their mom's sick. Mm-hmm. She has a cold, and you kind of, because the older sister kind of plays much like the little boy plays in the other role, but they kind of play that parent role, or they kind of play that role of a child that's filling the role of a parent or a parental unit in lieu of the missing parent, right?
Right.
So she kind of plays the mother role as her mother's sick, and you kind of don't realize that, I guess, as much until she goes to school and she's kind of forced to interact with other people her own age, and you can see that she really excels at you can see that the older sister is really enjoying being with people her own age. But then she's leaving her little sister at home, and the first day she goes to school, little sister, finds the spirit in the woods. And it's kind of neat to kind of see how when the children are sad, or they need a little bit, they need something to lean on. They kind of lean on that legend or the stories or whatever, right? So the first day she goes to school, she sees the spirit, and then the older sister's like, "Oh, I hope I get to see the spirit one day." Blah 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 blah. And then as the older sister starts to grapple with the things going on, and she's really struggling and all this, the spirit reveals itself to her, and then ultimately ends up helping her find her sister. And it was really touching. It was a very touching story, and I really enjoyed it. The music was awesome. I really enjoyed Totoro. I thought he was a really cool character, and just, it was a really sweet movie, man. It's just really sweet. Nothing was really wrong with mom. She was just sick and in the hospital. She's gonna get better. And yeah, it just leaves you feeling really good about things.
I do know. this one was it was right in the sweet spot for me. Like, it was a movie that, I mean, it was only an hour and a half long, but I'm just like, I'm good. I'll just live in this movie for a while. Thanks though. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a sweet movie. And I mean that, you know, unabashedly. Like, it's just a sweetly told movie. It's a sweet story. It's a sweet story of sisterhood. It's a sweet story of, you know, fucking forest spirits or whatever, you know, like it's really like this interesting kind of magical realism vibe to it, but it feels so genuine, and it just feels authentic as like a story of just growing up, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed it. Like, I liked, especially again coming off the back of Grave of the Fireflies, where it's the most depressing fucking thing in existence. This feels like it does everything in its power to just, like, there's no real conflict to this movie. There's no villain in this movie. You know, there's some, you know, like May kind of gets lost towards the end, and it's just like, oh no, what's going to happen? But like, you know, this isn't the kind of movie where May's just going to fucking die and they're going to find her like floating in the lake. And they're like, oh, her sandals here. Like, where is she? Like, you know, like, it's not that kind of movie. And even though there's kind of maybe a lurking sense of dread, it picks you up like immediately, you know. The fucking cat bus comes around.
Bus. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, cat bus comes around and then it flips its thing to say May, and it's just like, you know, like it.
That's another emotional response. I think it may have hit me twice in this movie. You got sister being an asshole, and she's kind of real sad. You know, you see her kind of crumble, that facade of the older sister kind of breaking away. Mm-hmm. But then there's a couple of these Ghibli movies that kind of hit you. They hit you, and they elicit an emotional. At least for me, they hit me in a emotionally at happy times. I can't think of any group of movies from any company or anything that have elicited emotional response out of happiness. Just sweetness.
This is a happy fucking movie.
It's a happy movie, dude. And maybe they do a good job of breaking you down, but even still, even at like even the saddest moment of this movie isn't really, I mean, it's really not that fucking sad. It's not like anybody died. It's not like 4 fucking people died. The 2 adults died and the fucking brother and sister died. It's nothing like that. The saddest part of this movie, and then the high is so high too. It's really fucking good. Really good. Anyways.
It's really good. Yeah. The one thing I guess, because like Totoro is kind of like the mascot of Ghibli. Like, he's part of the logo, and like I've seen this character around everywhere. And the one thing I think that surprised me about this, seeing it for the first time, was I expected there to be more involvement from that character, but it's just kind of just chance encounters here and there, and then like he I guess, you know, he brings the cat bus to kind of save the day at the end. So it was a little bit more plot consequential, but most of it's just straight up just living in this world, and like May just stumbling into him, and, you know, they have that kind of interaction where she's on his stomach and they're yelling at each other for a little while, and like it's all just like super innocent, and just like there's no. It's weird because this movie, I feel like, doesn't have like a ton of forward momentum. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like super, like, you know, compare it to like Nausicaä and compare it to like Castle in the Sky. Like, those are much more convoluted, complex movies. This one is just like, no, this is just life. Like, just take it in, you know, one stride at a time. And then sometimes weird things happen. And that's kind of what happens here. Is their life just gets gradually more interesting and kind of builds up in terms of, you know, the involvement of this Totoro, and then the cat bus coming along. Like, I don't know, like just to me, like the combination of just the, I don't know, the day in the life kind of nature with that kind of fantastic aspect, with the magical aspect of it. Like, it all just like, it all felt kind of seamless to me. Like, and it just, I don't know, like it didn't feel so far off from reality that it felt like we were living in this distant land, like in Nausicaä and Castle in the Sky. Like, it felt close enough.
I think that's why they chose to have him as the mascot for this company.
Yeah,
because you have real life going on, but just allow a little bit of magic in there.
Just a little bit of magic, yeah. And so I think that's what I liked about this movie overall, is that it was just that little bit of magic. Like, it was just like a kind of thing, and Like it's in like the adults couldn't see the cat bus running around, right? Wasn't that kind of
Yeah, they couldn't see the adults couldn't see the dust.
The kids are the one experiencing the magic, and and that's obviously there is an element to this film where like the magic is real because we kind of see with literally her finding May, going to the hospital,
the trees,
and leaving. They leave something on the windowsill. I forget exactly what it is.
Corn cob.
The corn. That's right. The corn that they picked with Nanny or Nana or whatever her name is. It's all. It's such a just a sweet, genuine movie. Like I feel like I'm just repeating myself, and I probably am. But like, it's hard for me to like what could you say like critically about this movie? Like, you know what I mean? Like
the intro sequence is a little fucking weird. The beginning credits with the song, and it's just like that fucking inchworm and a little girl running across the front, and it's just like these spiders doing like a little wiggle on the bottom. Do you remember this?
I don't remember it exactly. No, I guess I wasn't too bothered by
it's time to go Totoro or whatever the song was.
Sure, I'm going with it. I'm going with it.
It was funny. I told Sarah, Sarah, don't discredit this movie from this beginning. I know you're kind of probably thinking, what the fuck am I watching? I promise you it's really good. And by the end of it, she's like, yeah, that was a real cute movie.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that like that's not diminishing in any way. Like it is just a really cute movie. Like it's just there's some like this feels like comfort food in terms of film. Like it's not very long. It's not challenging in terms of like you're gonna feel fucking real sad about this movie, or you're gonna have to think really hard about like the plot in this movie. Like no, it's just like just put it on and like just soak it in. Like this is a movie that you can just kind of soak it in, and that's what I really like. Is like, yeah, this is kind of weird, yeah, but like yeah, just let yourself just lend yourself to this movie, and I feel like you'll find it a rewarding watch. So anyway, that's my rambling a couple beers in take on my Neighbor Totoro. So really liked it. Do you have any other thoughts on it? Would you like to dip into
it's just a heartwarming movie. Deserves to be watched.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Iconic favorite moment?
Iconic favorite moment for this movie is the giant bear hug. The older sister goes to Totoro and she's crying. I just don't know what to do. Help me. Blah, 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 blah. Help me. I don't know what to do. She totally and utterly crumbles into the giant belly of Totoro. He just gives her a giant ass bear hug and screams. Rah! And the fucking cat bus comes in and comes running in, opens its like organically nasty, weird fucking door.
It just goes out the fucking door. I like when she sat down on like it, like she kind of like sunk into like the fur a little bit.
Yeah, the little fucking sign spins up to May, and that cat's running along the fucking, it's sailing through the wind, and it runs on top of the power line, and it's just so fucking cool. So it's so good. And then she's yelling for her sister, and sister's like, oh, where you at? And she's crying because she's fucking lost and looks like she's in a cemetery or some shit. And then the cat comes in and she goes, oh, the cat bus. And she's all so happy. Everybody's so fucking happy. They go and see mom. Mom's not fucking sick. And everybody's just so fucking happy, dude. Cat bus, though, the bear hug and the summoning of the cat bus is kind of like you asked for my favorite moment. Kind of just paraphrase the end of the movie, but that's cool too.
Yeah, no, it's really great. I feel like I feel like the most wholesome thing in this is, so they plant like the seeds in the garden. And it's like they have the encounter with the Totoros and his little minions. But I feel like that's the most wholesome moment is when they kind of have that and they're just like dancing in a circle around it, like super happy that like it sprouted after they have that whole adventure. Yeah. And they're just like, I mean, I don't know how it is in the English dub, but like in the Japanese one, they're just like shouting at the top of their lungs, like super happy. And then dad's just like, oh, okay. Yeah,
there's no magic involved in that shit. That's what happens when you put an acorn in the ground. Fucking sprouts up.
Like for me, I was just like, this is just so adorable. I can't help myself. But I think my favorite moment, which I think is also one of the most iconic moments, at least because I think it's sort of depicted on the poster, is the bus stop.
Yeah,
when they're waiting for Dad.
Yeah.
And and Totoro just kind of rolls up. And he's got like a leaf on his head or something like that.
Yeah.
I guess it's the first time that the older sister sees him, right?
I think so. Yeah, they're sitting there waiting for the bus.
So she's like, "Oh shit, okay," and she gives him the umbrella.
And that was just it, dude. That was just another thing. The sister was beginning to crumble. Dad didn't show up on the first or second bus.
Right.
She's starting to have a hard time, but here strolls in Totoro. Just to ease the mind, sprinkle a little magic in there. It's all going to be okay, and it fucking makes her night. And then here comes Dad. It's so fucking good.
And then Cat Buzz rolls up.
Yeah,
and he takes the umbrella. That's so awesome.
It's good.
Anyway, that's. I think that would probably be my pick, but I did really like them dancing around. Just like I said, I think the relationship between the two sisters was just really, really well done. Like in terms of the dynamic, like you said, kind of assuming that parental figure, and then like the subsequent kind of breakdown after really kind of shows that she's still the kid too. So it was really well done. Well, it's a good movie, man.
It is.
I'm just going to put it on repeat. I'm going to watch, review it, and repeat it. That's what I'm going to do.
Nice.
All right, so we are on to our last film for our bonus episode. A film by the name of Kiki's Delivery Service, which was released the following year in Japan, July 29th of 1989. Also written and directed by the very prolific Hayao Miyazaki. Japanese voice cast includes Minami Takayama, Rei Sakuma, Keiko Toda, Kappei Yamaguchi, and the English voice cast includes Kirsten Dunst, Phil Hartman, Tress MacNeille, Janine Garofalo, and Debbie Reynolds. Kiki, a young witch on her mandatory year of independent life, finds fitting into a new community difficult while she supports herself by running an air courier service. I know this is your jam. Am I wrong?
You're definitely not wrong.
All right, so I feel like I should kick this one over to you. Tell me about it.
I think that this is it. We've watched these 4 other movies, and I really think that this is the precipice of the 80s decade here. I think that this is the kind of a different. I think it's more of a. I think it's a really identifiable area in life. As you get older, it's kind of harder to identify with the first grade years of childhood and the pre-K year of childhood, but this is a teenager's year, or somebody's that's got to go out on their own and kind of thrive on their own, and they're kind of struggling to find their footing. They're struggling to find their place in the society, and I think that was a really cool place to explore, and then have the dressings of a magical place and magical setting. I think it's really cool. The exploring of those, like, they got you got Kiki and the guy that's kind of pursuing her and stuff, and just tries to get her to go on a date and this and that, and they kind of have a good time, and it's a really sweet, innocent kind of deal. There's really sweet people and nice people, like the lady that gives her room and board to like deliver bread and shit. It's fucking cool. But then at the same time, the things that she thought she was strong in, she starts to lose, and she starts to struggle with it. And then like the cat, she can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gigi
moves on,
Gigi definitely moves on.
Yeah, Gigi moves on. Right. And it was sad, but at the same time, you see how happy the cat is. Right. And then same thing for her. She ends up finding her footing and her place, and it's just a really full circle kind of story, and it feels real nice. It's a good little adventure show, good little adventure movie. It's real sweet. I think it's super sweet. Yeah, I don't know. I really, really, really enjoyed this one. The score is outstanding in this one. The way that they choose to animate the flight and just the witchcraft and stuff like that, it's really cool. And the world building, I think, is awesome. Just the idea of going out, you've done this, now you're this age, you need to go out and establish yourself somewhere different and new. And I think that was just really cool. That's it. Just really cool, really sweet movie.
It's definitely a really sweet movie. And it's super wholesome movie as well. Like there's a few times in this movie, I watched this with Anna, who is, I can probably now admit, an hour and a half into this episode, that might have been the reason that some of my free time went away. But we actually watched this together, and there was a few times where like I feel like we didn't quite see it as wholesome as it was supposed to be. Like there was a couple times where we were like, things are going to go real bad right now. But it was just like, this is just not that kind of movie. Like none of these movies, Grave of the Fireflies aside, are like that kind of movie. Like they're not intended to be kind of this super depressing kind of vehicle. Like it's like, no. Like everything is just kind of genuine and like well-meaning, So it's just like someone, she's just like, shit, I don't have a place to stay. And so like the kind of one of the first places she walks into is just like, I've got a free room. You can just chill there. Like you can live there. That's cool. And like there's never anything more to that. Like that's just it. Like that's just kind of the thing. And so that's what I really liked about this, is that like every moment is just like a kind of wholesome thing that happens with Kiki, and it is really just kind of this journey of self-discovery for her. Like
that's just
I'm
it.
now
The villain.
13.
There's no villain in this movie.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
no
like
villain.
there's
It's
like
just
there's like that.
self-discovery.
There's like the one girl like the party. She's just like, oh, my grandma makes some really shitty food or whatever. But like, she's not a villain. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, even Kiki's world has to have people like that in it, I suppose. I mean, Tombo's somewhat villainous in that he's a little creepy towards the beginning, but I think he kind of rights the ship a little bit towards the middle of the movie. He kind of, I would say his approach wasn't exactly great to start off with, but
it's kind of like what's his face being a dickhead in the beginning of the movie, beginning of Totoro. The fucking neighbor boy. The neighbor boy just won't fucking talk to me.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
He's just a fucking asshole. I guess that's
true.
one way.
That's fair.
So everybody's got those awkward stages, I suppose.
Yeah, plus they're kids, it's just like, like communication's not their strong suit, right?
Right. But he makes that fucking bicycle, which was pretty rad.
Mm-hmm. He does make the bicycle. Yeah. But I think like, it's just this journey of self-discovery for Kiki, and it's interesting because, it's like she's going to a brand new world. She doesn't really know what she's good at. She's not particularly good at flying her broom, even though that's basically what she makes her trade, as it turns out.
She starts to lose it, right? And
she starts to lose it, right? Yeah, absolutely. Like that's kind of the thing. It's just like, oh fuck, like what can she do? She's lost Gigi basically, and I mean, obviously he's still around, but he's busy, you might say. And she can't really fly anymore, so it's just kind of like, okay. What's her thing, because she meets that like super confident witch in the beginning. She's like, I'm the fucking greatest witch there ever was. Who the fuck are you, or whatever,
Right.
That's the villain of the movie. We found it. So it's Kiki kind of finding herself, and like it is very relatable,
And she finds that witch in the woods. It's like the artist.
Yeah, the artist,
And that
Ursula? Sounds right.
Can't remember. I think that's the first emotional response I got, though. I think when she kind of shows her.
Yeah, that's what she's trying to find. She's trying to get Gigi back, right? Or the toy. The toy that fell into the forest, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, I don't know. They come to me in blurps.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. It's I feel like it's really fun to undertake this journey with Kiki and to go through the emotions that she herself experiences of the excitement of leaving home and going to meet new people, and then the jitters of, oh fuck, I'm meeting new people and I'm going somewhere new and I don't know this place and no one knows me and I feel uncomfortable, and
just causing wrecks kind of and mayhem and shit in the fucking
right,
town.
And there's that added layer of like, which is obviously not being super commonplace in this world, and everyone's like just gawking at her and being like, what? And then there's the cop who's just like, you fucking caused an accident, you bitch, what'd you do? He's like, you better stay there. She just fucking bails, which is a respectable move. Totally a pro move. Just be like, I'm gonna walk away now.
I'm out.
And she meets this cast of characters. Tombo he's definitely a bit of a goober. There's no doubt about it. Definitely a goober. but he's a mostly endearing goober, a mostly well-meaning goober, and the artist and the grandma who she kind of helps. She helps cook. Like it's another just super fucking wholesome movie. Like it really is, you know. And it kind of resolves in this moment of self-crisis, and then there's the payoff, and the payoff makes it all worth it, you know. And it feels really kind of wholesome. I feel like it ended somewhat abruptly for me. Like I feel like but I honestly wonder if that's just a consequence of, I wanted to know more. Like I wanted more of the story. Like, cause it never really kind of felt like she really found her one thing, cause she's still not really good at flying. Even though she does regain the ability to do so, she's still not like the greatest at it, but you know,
but that's her thing.
It's not even about it. It's like, she's just like, I'm just content to do my own thing. Like I found my place. Even if I'm not the best at it, like I enjoy it, and like that's kind of enough for her. You know, she's happy. Like, so I was just like, you know, I think for me, like I said, it was more of just kind of a case of just like a Kiki's Delivery Service 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is this one based on a manga? I don't think it is. But yeah, really, really well told movie. The more I talk about it, the more I like it. But it's really well done. It's really, really well done.
Yeah. Favorite moment on this one? What's your favorite moment?
Favorite moment on this one. I believe it's going to be the exact same moment as yours. So I don't want to steal your thunder. So maybe we can go in on this one collectively. But it's kind of Kiki's kind of final flight towards the end of the third act, when she has to mount the rescue mission to save Tombo, who's dangling from a big fucking airship blimp thing.
Yeah.
It's in a big accident. But it was. I feel like the way that it was depicted was so
fucking epic, dude.
It was epic, but it felt right, because it was epic because you kind of have the moment of her, like, you know, like, I've got to believe in myself, and like an intense kind of zoom, and then like, you know, things like the wind starts, you know, moving around her.
Yeah, it's a big swell of wind.
Right, and like the music swells, and then when she takes off, like, it's not like this big epic moment of like she's perfect at flying. No, she like fucking immediately crashes into a wall, and it's hilarious. Right. And then she bounces around a couple times, but she still, you know, she finds her way, and like she writes the way, and like that's the thing, is like, yeah, she's still not perfect. She's
perfectly imperfect.
Right, exactly. That's kind of her thing, and like that's who she is, and that's why it works so well, yeah. And that's why it feels fitting for her to blast off in that manner, instead of just magically being like, oh, I'm perfect now. Like, no, like, you know. It really worked, but it was also hilarious just because I felt like the juxtaposition of it making this super epic moment, and then just kind of giving you just a little, just the whimsy of like, oh, I'm just going to crash into the wall a couple times, and then still save the day. Like I felt like that really, really worked. So that was my favorite moment. I don't want to step on your toes, but I believe that may have been yours as well.
That was my favorite moment as well. Yeah, she's in Granny's house trying to cook that pie or whatever, and she sees on the TV that the airship's on an accident, and she sees her little friend there, and she
little Tombo's in danger.
She runs out and grabs that broom. She doesn't know if she's going to make it, you know, but that's what you got to do. You got to strap up and fucking get it done, and that's what she does, dude.
She gets it done.
Summons the fucking wind.
In her own Kiki-like way.
I really like. I could still see it in my mind, like that. Just that the slow. She's holding the stick, the broom handle, you know, and she's just her dress kind of moves around a little bit, and the grass is spinning around, and her hair goes up a little bit, and then she's fucking gone, straight into the wall. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, and she's gone. It's fucking cool. Really liked it. Really, really liked that one. Really like Kiki's. Really did. Yeah. Whole lot.
Really, really, really good one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that brings us to the end. Well, near the end of our journey with this first iteration of films from Studio Ghibli. So I feel like it's only appropriate if we conclude with a little bit of rankings action for these first 5, which was tough because, as we've probably established by this point, all 5 excellent films. Really hard to rank them. I think they're all very, very close in terms of where they are in the pecking order. Very little separation between each of these. I feel like it comes down to personal preference in terms of rankings. And then there's also kind of the weird nugget of Grave of the Fireflies being like totally, completely in left field versus I think any of these other four. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, oh, how do you deal with that? So anyway, I believe we've both compiled some rankings that we can share with our listeners. I wouldn't say the definitive rankings because these are all so good. Your mileage may vary with any of these, but why don't we work backwards? We'll start at 5 and work our way up to number 1. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. What do you have for number 5?
Castle in the Sky.
I also have Castle in the Sky at number 5.
Oh, look at that.
I think we're going to diverge, to be honest, but maybe not. I think we will. But either way, yeah, Castle in the Sky. Really enjoy it. Again, really great film.
Awesome movie. Very good.
But still number 5. Something has to be number 5, right? So number 4. What do you have for number 4?
Nausicaä, The Valley of the Wind.
Nausicaä, The Valley of the Wind. All right. Well, let's see what we have here. This is getting interesting. We did not consult prior to making these rankings, for the record. Yeah, again, another one. Really, really enjoyed it. But
that one is really cool. That's the first one, or not the first one.
Yeah, well, it's really the. I mean, it's a Miyazaki movie. You know what I mean? Like it's all of the components of Studio Ghibli without the studio literally being in place. It was figuratively in place at that point. You know what I mean? So It totally counts. All right, so it's at number 4. Again, really good. Number 3, what do you have?
My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh, here we go. We're diverging a little bit. I've got Grave of the Fireflies at number 3.
Ooh.
Because I really liked it, and it's an excellent film. I just felt like it's hard because it's again, I think it's a film that everyone should watch because of what it is, but it's like it's hard for me to like say that like this film that I'll probably watch once every like decade at best is kind of like the best, you know what I mean? Like it's a really well-made movie. It's a really heartbreaking story, but I almost kind of favor the rewatchability of the two that I put above it.
That's very fair.
Because of where they stack up in the pecking order. So that's why I had Grave at number 3, but you had Totoro at 3.
I had Totoro at 3. So I put Castle in the Sky at the bottom of the pecking order just because it took me the longest to get into it. Not to say that it's bad or anything else, but it took me the longest to get involved. Nausicaä, The Valley of the Wind was totally awesome, but I can actually I can identify and I feel more for these top 3. So when I got to these top 3 movies, I did it in order of like identifiability. Is that a word? Identifiability?
It is now.
It is now. I made that shit up just off the cuff. Don't ask me to spell.
I don't know.
Whatever. Anyways, the sense of identification that I have for these movies, right? So Totoro is fucking incredible. It's an incredible movie. It's really good. I enjoy the subtle the sprinkling of magic in a otherwise very normal world. I think it's really cool. I think the next 2 movies, I think though, they solicited much more of an emotional response, and I could identify more easily and readily with the characters in the top 2 movies. So that's why I picked them.
Cool. Yeah. What's number 2 for you?
Number 2 is Grave of the Fireflies.
I kind of figured.
Grave of the Fireflies is a harrowing tale. I think it's incredibly well made. Much like you, yeah, I probably won't watch this one again for a very long time. Not that it's not a bad movie. You just got to find the right time to sit down and watch it again. Maybe with showing it to someone else is the next time I'll probably watch it. Yeah, just a hard watch. Incredibly well made, and I feel like it's very outside the style of Ghibli movies. But it just it's a testament to how these movies can be made and how they are made and everything else. It's very much a staple, I think, for their studio, and I really enjoyed it.
And I feel like, yeah, it's like a testament to the fact that they're capable of making these super wholesome movies, but also making these super real,
yeah,
/ depressing movies. You know, like it is really that range of emotions that they're able to capture with the same amount of I don't know, grace, I guess. I don't know. Like it really feels genuine how they were able to tap into both of those. It's really impressive. I don't know. Maybe I should have put Grave at number 2. I'm sticking to my guns.
What's your number 2?
I have Kiki's Delivery Service at number 2. For me
Kiki
personally.
is number 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Really like it. But number 1 just did just hit the sweet spot for that reason. So I think process of elimination. Number 1 for me is My Neighbor Totoro. Again, I just felt like the Tale of Sisterhood combined with that, like that magical realism aspect. Like I said, it was just the sweet spot for me where I just wanted to eat up every like second of that film. Like it just worked. Just worked for me. There's something about it that just worked for me. And it was just so easy to just come into and live with. And, it was nice to have a movie that didn't have like this villain, that just didn't have any sort, like it just felt like I don't know. I can't think of the last movie that I've seen that felt like that. And I think maybe that's why it kind of resonated with me so much, is that it, like even Kiki had like kind of like a self-realization kind of journey, which was relatable, but I'm like, oh, I've seen that in movies before. You know what I mean? Whereas
I think
Totoro was just kind of,
I think Totoro is very much like a Guillermo del Toro-esque movie.
Yeah, maybe.
Where you have like, you got the normal things going on, but then there's supernatural things happening behind the scenes. Just hints of it.
Yeah, I guess I just like the easiness of it. You know what I mean? I don't mean that like in a bad way, obviously, since it's number 1 for me. But I just liked watching that movie. Just made me feel good.
Right, that's good.
Just made me feel good. So number 1 for you is
Kiki's. Kiki made me feel good. Kiki's Delivery Service made me feel good.
Mm-hmm. Oh my.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. I like the fact that Castle in the Sky, Nausicaä, I guess it's the only 2 really, because the other 2 kind of set place in Japan. I feel like Kiki's is a completely made up world with made up sensibilities, and you really had to build an entire world around that. So I think it's the culmination of the ability to create a world, but also have a very, very relatable story inside the tapestries of a fantastic setting, right? And I think that was really cool. And I think that, I think she was incredibly relatable. I thought it was an incredible story. But it didn't, just because the story was relatable and the characters were relatable, the world building and everything else was top notch in it too. So, I think that is, the reason why I picked number 1, because it feels like the culmination of things that I like from the studio is all present in Kiki's Delivery Service. Fantastic world building, unique world, with relatable, well-written characters. That's why I picked number 1.
Very cool.
Heard it here first.
You did hear it here first. That's absolutely true. Nowhere else could you have heard
our rankings,
nor my rankings.
That's right.
On the Studio Ghibli films, at least the first 5 anyway. We've got quite a few to get through as well. Do you have any final thoughts on 5 films, Studio Ghibli in general? Anything you want to,
I would recommend that. Final thoughts. Watch these fucking movies, guys. If you haven't seen them, even if it's outside of your wheelhouse and you think I feel a little uncomfortable watching Japanese animated cartoon, do yourself a favor, let down that wall and watch one of these movies. I'd probably recommend watching one of our top 3 picks before you dive into the super sci-fi.
Probably don't start with Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not that one. That one's pretty harrowing, but
it's something that's a little bit more on the wholesome side, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, you got Kiki's or My Neighbor, but those are both incredibly awesome movies, and kind of can set the viewing pace from there. I think would be a good decision. Let down that wall and watch these movies, guys, because they're definitely worth watching.
Thank you. Hit on it. Yeah, I mean, take that leap of faith, watch these movies. I unfortunately don't think there's an easy way to watch these movies aside from just tracking down the Blu-rays, but they're pretty affordable. I think You can usually find them for around 15 a piece. So, take a chance on the one that maybe catches your fancy the most in terms of kind of the plot. Maybe you want something a little bit more convoluted. Maybe Nausicaä is kind of more your jam, or Castle in the Sky might be more your jam. Or if you're looking for something that's a little bit easier to dive into, My Neighbor Kiki might be that kind of thing for you. Or you really want to get walloped in the chest. Grave of the Fireflies is still an excellent film. It's just, you know what you're walking into, obviously. So yeah, highly recommend all of these films. All excellent films. Disregard the numbers in terms of the rankings. They're all easily worth your time. Not a bad one in the batch. Glad we spent the time talking about it. Studio Ghibli, nailing it, at least as of 1989. So
yeah, and I can wholeheartedly say, my friend, that in my opinion, for my money,
it's only going up from here. Is that what you're about to say?
My opinion, the best is yet to come. I think you got a lot.
Ooh.
I think you got you have some really there's scores from these movies, okay, for our next decade in the 90s, okay, that I listen to on a regular basis. Put it on the fucking play, okay? Some ridiculous stories, some ridiculous animation techniques that were busted out. I really think you're going to enjoy the next decade of Ghibli.
Well, there's a little sizzle for you folks, and for me as well.
Spicy.
Ooh. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. Again, a big thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon for basically giving us a reason to make this bonus episode in the first place. Once again, apologies for the delay on getting this out the door, but we did it. So we can definitively say that we did it. So there is that. If you are listening to this on the regular feed and you want to support us on Patreon, so you can get access to our next bonus episode, which we will talk about very shortly, head on over to patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat, or you can head to our website where you can find anything you need on us, watchreviewrepeat.com. Just click the premium tab up in the top left and click the Become a Patron button. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, send those our way, watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Maybe you want to take a dive on some of the Studio Ghibli films yourself. Let us know what you think. You can follow us on Twitter. We are at WRRPod. Like us on Facebook at Watch Review Repeat. Our intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. And for those of you that have stuck around to the bitter end, we can announce that our next bonus episode is going to be something a little Halloween-centric, something horror-centric. A little bit different than what we did last year when we did our Horror Around the Globe movies that we did. We're gonna center around a horror franchise this time, and we're gonna center around a franchise by the name of The Evil Dead. So we're gonna be taking a look at the Sam Raimi trilogy, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and we're gonna take a look ahead to the Fede Alvarez reboot, remake, if you will, of The Evil Dead as well. So that's what you have to look forward to. It will be up in October sometime. The Evil Dead franchise bonus episode. Look forward to that. And as a side note, we will be covering more Studio Ghibli in the future, probably early next year, because there's a movie that comes out in December that it's kind of big, that we might be doing some bonus episodes on. We'll let you do the math on that one. But if you can't, stay tuned for that announcement. We'll let you know sooner rather than later. All right, that's it for this bonus episode. Thank you, you guys, for joining us. Andrew,
take care now. Bye-bye then.
Laters on the Menge.